So, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you, Chris and Christine, for speaking. I know this is you guys' first time ever speaking at one of our events, so it's great to have you today. And again, sorry for the slight technical issues and delay. So, together, Chris and Christine have founded Legacy U, an evolution of estate planning to abundantly motivate Canadian individuals and business owners to overcome the legacy procrastination effect via an educational platform which guides them through the process of envisioning, building, communicating, and living their best legacy. Thanks again for presenting today, guys, and good luck.
Thank you, Alex. Christine, did you want to?
Yeah, I'll just do a little brief synopsis at how we arrived at where we're at today. And it really came as a result of us looking at what are the factors that are keeping people in the legacy procrastination effect. And it really all boils down to education. And there's really no educational platform that exists today. And that is really how we arrived at Legacy U. So Chris, I'm going to let you kick it off and talk about education as it relates to business succession planning.
Okay. So I spent or endured almost 15 years in the financial services area. I'm a lawyer by background and have been for 30 years, and then became a family enterprise advisor, did business succession planning for two of Canada's largest financial institutions, and tried to help a lot of businesses, both family businesses and non-family businesses, start to envision what the sale process is going to look like for their business. And over the 15 years that I was doing that, it was, shocking can be the word. It was disheartening sometimes, just how many questions there were that remained both to be asked and both to be answered. And that was part of the process that we were trying to do. And I think what we're trying to do, Christine, and what makes will ultimately be our platform interesting, is that we're trying to educate people on questions that they need to be asking and viewing their transition planning, so the sale transition, whatever the dispositive event of your business is going to be, as something of a process and of a journey, and that journey includes a lot of people that come along with you. You've got employees, you've got family, you've got advisors. You have an entire ecosystem that surrounds your business, and there's a legacy that's going to go with that. It's going to be a story that you are telling at every step of the process. It's a legacy that you are living today, and it's a legacy you're going to live tomorrow. And it's a legacy that's going to survive the sale of your business as well, because it's going to be reflected, hopefully, in the good that the post-sale proceeds do, that money in the jeans does for you and your family once the sale process has been completed. And what I found over the many years that I was involved as a business succession planner and a family enterprise advisor, which is work that I do today, was that a lot of people don't think of it that way. They look at it very transactionally. The sale of their business is an event. It is a target. And I think, kudos to the presenters and organizers of this event today. Lots of really good. I was listening to Doug, and he was talking about Doug Robbins, and he was talking about how this is a process, how this takes time. There's a strategy that's involved with this. And so what I thought I would do, what Christine and I will do here, is present a few questions that or ways of thinking about your business sale process that involve an integration of what we think is a concept of legacy, but get you thinking about the things that you might want to do or might need to do that aren't so much target-oriented, but that are goal-oriented at the end of the day. So legacy is a real-time, ongoing mindset that's part of your life and wealth cycle. It's not something, too often people sit down and say, what's my legacy? And they think of their name on a park bench or on the ward of a hospital or something like that. It's much, much more than that. It's the story you leave behind. It's the experience you leave behind. So, for example, I do a lot of work in the estate planning space, and a lot of businesses transition, and Doug referred, a lot of business sales don't happen, and then businesses transition ultimately through somebody's estate. 50% of adult Canadians don't have a will. Well, that's a legacy. That's a lesson and a statement and an experience that you're you're leaving behind for your family, for your loved ones, and for your employees too, because it's not going to be a good experience for them most of the time. So we try to introduce, or we're trying to introduce, an educational model that will help people think of their succession planning, their enterprise wealth planning as a process, and it's something that they can learn along the way, and that there are a variety of teaching moments along the way, both for yourself and for those that you love and care for, or feel some responsibility towards. So this sense of legacy that you're going to have with your planning it's how you live your life. It's not something you necessarily leave behind. It's what you start today and what you do every day. It's not just how it winds up on sale, or if you have I hope not, a disability of some sort that means your continuation in the business is ended in some manner, or if you pass away, which certainly, I'll deal with that a little bit more, but that certainly results in the transition of a business as well. It's a deemed disposition. So in Canada, one of the things we have to remember, and I'll talk about some of the 5 Ds, is that death is a deemed disposition. There's lots of ways your business can be sold. This is a very positive conference. We're talking about how you would like to sell it in an orderly, coordinated way where you're choosing the time and manner and ultimately selecting the purchasing process. And ideally, that is what happens. But it's also entirely possible that your time comes sooner than you had hoped. And as a result, your business ends up being sold. And I think one of the lessons, or is deemed to have been sold, and I think one of the lessons that you could reasonably take away, one of the inferences you can easily take away from the presentations, at least that I've been listening to today, and I know some of the other speakers that are presenting here, is that you need to be planning now. You need to be thinking about this now. And you may not sell for 5 years. As Doug mentioned, many of the sales that bubble up and percolate to the surface may never happen. So it could happen 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now. You want to start having a process in place today that will be ready, because somehow or another, your business is going to end up being sold. Every business ends up getting sold somehow. So the other part that we want to consider when I was working with, when I work with business families, is one of the things they forget is how undiversified they often tend to be in their exposure to a singular investment risk. Now, it happens to be an investment risk that they know and they understand. It's their business, but that exposes, it's half of your wealth. For most business owners, it's significantly more than half of your net worth. And what you've got to remember is that you've got plans for that. After, you may start another business, but that might be your retirement nest egg as well. And that you've got people that rely on you and that you feel responsible for. And so hopefully, as I move through some of these slides, you'll start thinking about some of the other steps that you could take in addition to understanding the value drivers and things like that in your business. Your business is also probably, I'm guessing we're a business family. It probably occupies 60% or more of your conscious day, probably more. It probably even occupies a good amount of your unconscious day. And so one of the things you want to start thinking about is what happens when my conscious day involves other things, not my business. What's my after sale life going to look like? One of the things I've noticed over the years, I teach in this space, is that a lot of, and we'll deal with the 5 Ds in a second, a lot of business owners are fundamentally optimists. And of course, there's an optimism bias in all of your decision making. That is what helps make you successful, but it also puts you at some risk because you tend to underestimate the likelihood of certain events occurring or overestimate the likelihood of certain events occurring. And for example, your morbidity risk is your risk of disability is many times greater today, if you're still in your business, than your mortality risk at the same point in time. So, we often tend to undervalue the possibility that we might have a disabling event. Well, that's undervaluing the outcome of an event is going to result in some form of a legacy being left behind. It's part of your mindset. And then we want to ask, what will your life look like after you sell the business? And that's a question that's very rarely asked with any seriousness and delved into. I was in many meetings where people would say, oh, I'm sure I'll find something to do. And it moved on from there. And the fact of the matter is, it often scares the wits out of people with what they're going to do. You can't watch TV. There just isn't enough good programming on Netflix, as good as it is. And you can't golf all day. As much as you might like to, you can't. You're going to go crazy. You're entrepreneurs. So we want to think about what you'll do after you sell the business as part of your fundamental legacy that you'll leave behind. So, and I don't mean after death necessarily, but after you've exited the business. So when is the best time to start thinking about the sale and what your post-sale life is going to look like? You know, these are our end posts in a journey. So it really is a process. We want to think about that all the time. When's the best time? Well, if you haven't started to think about it already, today's a good time to start thinking about it. You might run out of some options, but you won't run out of usable runway for some good planning. There are lots of things that you can do that are worthwhile. So, for example, I often introduce to the people that I work with to get them thinking about the things that can happen in life that they don't like to think about, so therefore they don't think about. And that's death, disability, debt, divorce, departure. Your odds of passing away are 100%. What we don't know is when it's going to happen. And of course, that is part of planning a legacy. I'll talk about that a little bit, but that leads to failures in communication. That leads to failures in governance. So not having appropriate decision-making structures in place, like buy-sell agreements, shareholder agreement, partnership agreements, depending on how you're structured as a business organization. If you don't have those key documents in place, you're going to have a valuation issue. And I know that Doug was talking about due diligence. I'm sure Howard was talking about that as well. I attended a conference a few years ago. It was put on by a law firm here in London, Ontario. It was part of the Family Enterprise Exchange group. And we had some lawyers presenting on their role in the due diligence process. And the whole gist of the presentation was, do you have your legal documents up to date? So contracts with suppliers, contracts with key employees, your buy-sell agreements, things like that. And I was actually stunned at the extent to which the valuation can be negatively affected by failing to have those documents appropriately in place, often not in place at all, not even thought about, and how that can grind down the valuation when you're working with your M&A team. So, contemplating these kinds of events, as grisly as it can feel, is absolutely critical to the successful valuation of the business to achieve the outcomes that you want post-sale. We also have to look at the possibility of disability. What happens if you suffer a disabling event or a business partner suffers a disabling event? These things can occur at any time, and they can be existential to your business. So you want to think about that. What about debt? What happens if the business struggles financially and takes on significant debt? Or if you or one of your business partners takes on significant debt and a bankruptcy occurs? These, again, can be events that put a business in a position where they're in big trouble at the end of the day. Of course, divorce, I often joke that if people could just behave in their personal relationships, particularly marriages, about half of the law profession would have nothing to do. And of course, that's never going to happen because we're humans and we're emotional and irrational in our decision making. So divorce is something that you want to think about because it has fundamental implications on what you can sell. What mechanisms do you have in place if a couple of years or a year before the sale process is about to go, maybe you got a couple business partners, let's complicate it a little bit. You got 2, maybe 3 other business partners with you, and one of them starts to go through a divorce proceeding. What is that going to do to your sale process? And you want to make sure that you have the right governance in place, the right type of decision-making architecture, like shareholders agreements, partnership agreements that contemplate what happens when somebody's going through a process like that, because that can very negatively affect the sale process for sure. And then finally, departure. What happens if a key person leaves or a key shareholder, for example, leaves? These can occur at any time for any variety of reasons. And we want to make sure that we protect the value of our business by understanding that there's a process in place to replace these people, but also to contemplate what that's going to look like. So here's a few questions that you might like to ask yourself. And I've chosen these questions very carefully because I'm trying to think of it from a financial planning mindset. So what is your strategy for the future growth of your business? Now, there's been some other speakers who talk much more eloquently about developing your strategic value. But do you even understand what the strategic value is of your business? Have you even talked to an M&A person or a private equity person to have them walk through with you how a third party is going to value your business? And you will want to have a strategy for growth, because you may be able to use that strategy for growth to fund a lot of the sale itself. For example, if you're using a management buyout or something like that, you may be able to use the growth to fund the purchase itself. So what is your strategy for growth? And if you can't answer that question, if you don't know what the value drivers are in your business, you don't understand what a purchaser is going to be looking at. They're going to be looking at that. So you want to start working sooner than later with these kinds of key advisors. Your business is going to change over the next 5 years. We've gone through an absolutely, for many businesses, a crippling change with the pandemic. For others, they're going to come out of this very much successful. And some of that will be chance, but some of that will be because they have a strategic model to deal with crisis moments such as this, moments that are generational and may not happen again. I think this is going to be an endemic pandemic. So I think coronavirus isn't going to go away. It's going to be something we're going to live with all the time. How does that affect your business? Do you understand that? And if the purchaser asks you about that, do you have an answer for that? What would happen to your business in the event of a tragedy to you or to a key employee? So one of the most important things you want to start working on, and this was always hard when I was working with business owners, it's hard to think of replacing yourself, but you need to do that. You need to figure out a way to replace yourself. And that takes time. You can't just necessarily go out and hire somebody that's going to be there as an asset for the ongoing business once it's been sold. You want to build bench strength. So what happens? What's your fire drill if there is an emergency, such as someone having a stroke or someone becoming ill or becoming disabled unexpectedly, or just deciding one day, getting up one day and saying, I'm done, that's it. And I think we're going to see some of that out of this pandemic. The next couple of years are going to be really interesting in this space, watching people's reactions. They've stuck in, they've endured, they felt responsibility both for themselves, their own commitment to their family and their employees, but they're tired. And this, there may be a lot of businesses that come on the market for sale. And then how does that affect you if there's a sudden flood of competitors on the market? Do you have a business continuity or a fire drill plan? That is absolutely huge. I've kind of alluded to that, but that's part of your legacy. What happens do you have powers of attorney in place? Do you have substitute decision-making both on a personal level and on a business side? Will people know where to find the key documents if you can't direct them to those documents? That's something you can work on today. That is a level of resilience you can build today. What events, even if remote, like a global pandemic, would devastate your business model? This kind of goes to your value drivers and understanding the risk as part of your SWOT analysis. What is the external risks that you are exposed to? And again, this is something that's part of your legacy. And if your business needed a cash injection, a sudden cash injection, where are you going to get that from? Where will you draw that from? Are you able to do that? So other presenters I know there are some CPAs speaking. They've probably shared with you, as I would share with you, it's selling a business. Doug talked about this. It does take time. I mean, if it even goes through, it's going to take probably a year, maybe even more than that. And depending on the tax planning that's required to get the maximum efficiencies out, it could take even longer than that. It could take 2 to 3 years. A lot of the accountants I worked with over the years have said that, ideally they would have that kind of runway with their client before the business was sold. So, and the reason for that is sometimes businesses get offside if you're incorporated of the capital gains exemption eligibility, and that may happen because they've got too many passive, non-active assets in their business, and it's not such as cash. It's not always that easy to extract that in a quick manner. So, there may be a tax penalty that you pay for not being ready for sale at all times. So you should be working particularly with your tax advisors to make sure that you are always ready for sale. And that may mean that you have to give 2 to 3 years of runway just maybe to get on side for tax purposes, plus all of the papering requirements that I've just talked about. So here are some more essential questions that I hope you'll think about, because this, again, is part of your legacy. This is part of the process of passing on something meaningful that's much more than just the financial value of the business, but also protecting the financial value of the business. So how is the ownership of your business arranged? If you're incorporated, then you may be eligible for the aforementioned eligible capital gains exemption. That's moving up to $1 million eventually, but there may be some planning that you have to go through in order to take advantage of that. You might also be able to do something called an estate freeze if you're incorporated. So if you've got some family members, you may be able to shift some of the future tax growth over to them as part of your business planning. Talk to your tax advisor about that, but that takes time to do. And they'll appreciate having that runway. Do you have the right governance in place, which is sort of a euphemism for decision making? Do you have the right documents in place to allow decision making to occur? What happens if you have a stroke in the middle of the sale process? You're going to survive that probably. I hope you do. That's probably going to happen. We survive these things now. So what happens if that happens during your sales cycle at all, but particularly during your sales cycle? Is there a mechanism in place to deal with that? If you are the only owner, what happens if a sale opportunity arises and not everyone agrees to sell? So today, you're thinking forward about some of the things that you can bring to bear to help make the sale process a maximum dollar event for you, but also a maximum efficient event for you. Well, having good decision-making documents in place, such as a shareholders agreement or a buy-sell provision, is going to be absolutely critical to the success of that process. And your lawyer can help you with that. Your accountant can help you with that as well on a certain level, about understanding the various different types of provisions. So there may be drag-along and tag-along provisions to bring along a reluctant seller, if you're a majority shareholder, for example, so that the process can go through. But it's good to start that now, because not everyone's going to agree on that. And if you start today and there's not agreement, because you may have a business partner, you're 63, they're 43, they had hoped to buy the business someday from you, and that was going to be their legacy to their family. And now they're thinking, I'd like to buy it today, and you've got a kid in the business, and maybe you're not ready to sell just yet. And now the timelines are getting stretched out, and you don't have the right governance in place, the right documentation in place. It may be very hard to negotiate it. So you want to negotiate these agreements at a time when everyone is in that sort of shared goal mindset. Again, an important part of legacy planning. Do you understand how much your business is worth? More importantly, how much is it worth to somebody who's going to buy the business? And what are they actually buying? It's very hard to sell a business that is a lifestyle business. So, you want to make sure that you have a saleable business, something that you can, there's other speakers talking about this, but it's very hard to sell a lifestyle business. Are you building so I said that. And what will you do when you sell? This is an absolutely critical question, and a lot of people don't think about this. So what are some personal financial questions that you should be asking yourself? Not just about the business, but about yourself. What level of income will I need in retirement to support my lifestyle? What kind of lifestyle do I want to have? I was on an event this morning where some financial planners were sharing the sort of milestones that they're now using for financial plans for their clients. And the larger financial institutions now are starting to show, they used to go to 80 and 85. Now they're doing 95 because people are living longer. And they are, in some cases, going to 100, particularly for females who will live longer. So we're living longer. We're not necessarily living better. And you want to think about what your lifestyle is during that time. If you have the understanding of the valuation drivers on your business, for example, maybe you can get those multiples up. Maybe you can sell into the future and get the number you need. But you need to know what that number will be. So what level of income will I need? And where I'm heading with this, because I'm seeing the time here. We started a bit late, but I'm seeing the time here. There are lots of financial planning services that are available, personal financial planning. I would encourage everyone listening in here to go and avail themselves of a personal financial plan, to understand, it'll be goals-based, to understand what it is you're trying to achieve out of your retirement, what it is you're trying to do. You may have family members that you need to support for whatever reason. You may have parents that you want to support and help out as well. So you've got a lot of competing financial goals there that are going to be part of your legacy. What lifestyle changes will I experience when I sell? I joke, not everyone's going to golf, but are you going to spend, when this pandemic we're enduring changes sufficiently, if you can risk it, will you go somewhere sunny for 6 months, or are you going to stay here, or are you going to go west in Canada and at least get away from it that way? What kind of lifestyle changes are you going to experience, assuming your health stays with you after you sell? What's your day going to look like? Are you going to come into the business, or would you be prepared to stay on if that was part of the sale provisions, if they wanted you to stick around for a little while? Will I start another business, or am I going on vacation right away? And that is a big question. And most people who are entrepreneurs find it very hard to have a full stop retirement. They often are entrepreneurs at the heart, and maybe their children or their spouse starts to get into a business and they cannot help themselves. And that's wonderful, but you should think about that. Are you still going to want to do that? Are you going to want to share on advisory boards your wisdom that you've created over this entire process of creating a successful business and then selling it successfully as well? The business has been a big part of your life for many years. How are you going to fill that void? How do you fill the day? Would you remain in the business, or do you have a successor? It's possible the business won't be sold to a third party. It could be sold to an internal party, for example, or a family member. Are you going to be a part of that post-sale reality for that business? And finally, what's the level of reliance on your business sale proceeds for the success in your post-sale life? How much of what you're hoping to achieve from a goals-based, objective, successful, obtaining mindset are you going to require from the sale of the business? Because you want to make sure that you understand the valuation and how people are going to pay for this versus what you're going to get in your jeans at the end of the day. And there might be a gap between what you are hoping to get and what you will be getting after taxes and everyone else gets their piece of the pie. Understanding that will help you have a better sense of what success looks like and also of achieving your own personal legacy. So what I tried to do in this presentation is, there's a lot of very good speakers talking about what the M&A process is going to feel like, what the sale process is going to feel like for you. All very vital information. And I encourage you, if you can, to listen to all of those speakers. What I was trying to introduce here is that while you're doing that, you've also got yourself to take care of. And you've got your personal legacy to take care of as well. And that personal legacy, a big part of that's going to be, what am I going to do after I've sold the business? What do I need to take away from the sale of the business to feel successful? And what's my legacy going to look like after I've sold in terms of the 25 or 30 years into retirement that I have in my life? And I would encourage you today, a big step in legacy planning is knowing which advisors to work with. And I would encourage you to start talking to your advisors, start speaking to your lawyer, start speaking to your accountant, seek out a financial planner, talk to your investment advisor, and start getting to understand the resources that they have available for you to begin to understand what your legacy is going to look like. So, Christine, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
I don't think so. That was a great presentation, Chris, and I really appreciate you taking the ball and me, as this is more of your wheelhouse than mine. However, we just emphasize the fact of education and planning and starting that process earlier, why your physiological brain is still able to really capture and process information and be able to come up with plans and understand. Because as we get older, it becomes inherently a little bit more difficult to undertake all of these tasks and really have great confidence in the decisions we're making as we go forward.
Well, we were talking about this the other day on a different platform, Christine, and I think a lot of people, they don't think about their future selves. They view the world in the future as being largely derivative directly of what the world is today. And that's just not true. We lose our decision-making capacities, change, our patience for change and our resilience for change changes. And sometimes that's a positive change. Most of the time it's not a good thing. And it's sufficiently different that it might alter a lot of the expectations along the way of other parties that you work with, suppliers, key employees, other owners, family members. There's so many people that are counting on you, and spending time understanding what you can control and putting into place, as we've talked about today, ways of guiding the decision making through good education that you share, that creates stewardship, for example, in your family over wealth, is all a conscious decision that you start today, and that will really, it might not enhance the sale value of your business, but it will enhance how you enjoy that wealth after you, and how you experience that wealth after you've sold the business.
Agreed.
Well, I think we've used up the half hour that is here. I'm sure people are moving over to other
Absolutely.
So thank you to everyone. Our
contact information is there. If anybody has any further questions, feel free to reach out. I mean, my phone number's there, my email's there. I'm happy to take any questions, as I'm sure Chris is.
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. There we go. I suppose that's us then. Okay.
All right, so I guess we're just...
Hey guys.
There's Alex coming in.
I just want to jump on and say thanks. Your presentation was really great. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, it's the best way to reach you through LinkedIn or email or...
I did put our contact information in the last slide there. So our telephone numbers and our emails were both in there. So if anybody has any questions, by all means, reach out any way they can. And both of us are on LinkedIn as well. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks again, guys. It was a really great presentation.
Thanks for having us, Alex. I really appreciate the opportunity.
No problem. Thanks. It was great to have you guys.
Okay. Great. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Bye. You too.
Bye.